Time now for the 10-minute war, and I think now we have permission for it to be a war. Again, our good friend, the one and only Reasonable Bucknut, at least the only one we've encountered, who also himself has a fantastic channel here on YouTube, the voice of college football, our good buddy, Mark Rogers. Yes, he's an Ohio State fan, but we all have our crosses to bear. How are you, Mark?
I've got a cross to bear now. I've got to do this segment every week with you after a loss, so it's not going to be made good now for 50 weeks. True. I also want to know who's given you permission now to make it a rivalry again. You're the one who deemed it not a rivalry.
Until Michigan proved otherwise, and it has done so. So, by the way, Mark, I don't want to rub it in, but it has been 739 days since Ohio State last beat Michigan in football. Anyway, Mark, I'm sorry. I won't keep doing stuff like that.
Technically.
All right. Yes, technically.
We know what would have happened last year.
All right. But it didn't happen, so the math continues. All right. So, Mark, Michigan Big Ten champions. Let's take off the Buckeye hat now and put on the voice of college football hat here. Michigan Big Ten champions. I mean, let's start from the beginning. How improbable this was. I mean, you know, Michigan's season win total was 7.5. That's the lowest it had been since Rich Rod. The ESPN FBI had given Michigan a 2% chance to win the Big Ten championship heading into the season. I think Michigan started off like at 15-1 to win the Big Ten. It was still 10-1 as recently as 2-3 weeks ago. And in fact, some of the Michigan players were chanting at the media as they came off the field at Lucas Oil Stadium last Saturday night, 2%, 2%, 2%. Okay. So Michigan winning Big Ten championships should not be, something of like, wow, we're shocked. I mean, they have won more than anybody else. This team, though, doing it, given where the program was at, I think this is one of the most shocking Big Ten championships in recent memory. But you put it in perspective for us, Mark. What say you?
It's shocking because of the opponent included, Ohio State. But just looking at and focusing on the Michigan aspect of this, to me, the team up until the Ohio State game was playing at a 2016/2018 performance level, which is very good, very high. Mm-hmm. But of course, then they had to deal with Ohio State at the end of the year, and it didn't turn out well. There was a decision made by the football program, the administration, Jim Harbaugh himself, with a twisted arm behind his back, to make some bold moves, or this program could have continued to be in that 8 or 9 win classification for who knows how long. And those moves could have went the wrong way. We certainly had a back and forth ourselves, and we're pretty much, I believe, on the same page regarding our skepticism of not necessarily the hires, but the positions in which they were placed, the roles in which these new coaches were placed.
One embattled coordinator who hadn't proved he could coordinate an offense, a guy who had never coordinated a defense, an offensive line coach who replaced one of the best in the business and never coached the position. You mean stuff like that, for example? Yes.
Absolutely that. I guess I should have relied more on my experience in the industry I was in, is where you make evaluations on people. And sure, you want people to be properly placed, but especially the higher you get within an organization, I think you go with the quality people. You go with the quality hires, and they will usually figure it out, and they will usually rise to the top rather than, okay, we got this 30-year veteran. They're pretty marginal, but they've been doing this for 30 years. They've been doing it mediocre for 30 years, but we're going to hire them because of all that experience. No, you go with people, and you go with their ability just to learn on the run and figure it out and excel. And you can't put a tangible metric on chemistry, which is a pretty amazing thing that Jim Harbaugh somehow figured out, or the combination of he and Aiden Hutchinson, and I don't want to discount other leaders on the team, but then really must have clicked with this coaching staff. And sometimes when you get pressed against the wall, back against the wall in life, quality people respond, and they did in a big way.
Was there a moment where you began to contemplate okay, this, not just clearly last year, throw all that out. And that killed me in handicapping this year more than anything else. And I really didn't figure that out until we got into November. Way too much of my power ratings and assessments were built off of stuff that happened last year. And the teams that were good last year and went to the playoff, that you count that. But basically for everybody else, just that year just should not, I didn't figure this out till November, that shouldn't factor into anything we think about these teams, right? So it's not just, okay, the program's not a dumpster fire like it was a year ago. But was there a moment in particular when you thought, not only is this thing restored as no longer a dumpster fire, and last year was a one-off, but maybe this team has something his previous teams did not?
So I didn't really think that the opponents told us much for a long, long time, except for that trip to Wisconsin. I felt as though, okay, this is significant. Wisconsin can really play defense, and they figured out a way to overcome the stalemate that they would find in the running game there. And they opened it up, they took some risks, and they beat Wisconsin offensively, 38 points on the board, a different way on the road. So that was one in particular. And in Wisconsin, we both know we're really struggling at that point. But I thought that Wisconsin would turn out to be a good team. And really, I believe they should have represented the West. Not that they earned it, but I believe that they are the best team in the Western Division. So they beat a good Wisconsin team and put points on a top 5 defense in the nation. So that was from the standpoint of seeing it play out on the field. In terms of an overall narrative, what I am most impressed by, and then I had to see it come to fruition against Ohio State in particular, was this identity on offense, where Harbaugh was able to go back to his roots, be old school, and get out of this offense what he wanted, which was this hard-nosed offensive line leaning Hassan Haskins, slam the defense over and over and over and make it pay off in the fourth quarter, but at the same time be able to complement that with explosive plays in the passing game and efficiency in the passing game, and where they were able to mold an identity but still have it be not outdated. I think that I was in total impressed most by that.
I think that's a good observation. I mean, pre-snap, it looks like a new offense, a new style offense. Post-snap, it looks like Jim Harbaugh's offense. They figured out that, this tension, why are we fighting? Because it's even more effective to run this physical power stuff when formationally we don't permit teams to put 8 or 9 in the box. We're not running into tight walls all the time. We're making them defend us horizontally, and then we're coming at you with the power approach, which provides more of an opening, less opportunities for our guys carrying the football to get hit at the behind the line or before they get to the second level. They figured that out. It'll be fascinating to see. There's not a lot of teams in college football that can recruit the ability to do that. That's why a lot of programs went to spread offenses, because they couldn't come up with offensive lines capable of moving lines of scrimmages like that. But there's still, the 30, 40 programs in the country that can either recruit or develop that way. I wonder, like next year at Wisconsin, do we see Wisconsin come out with really the same offense, but just formationally looks a lot different, so that you can't get away with stacking the box pre-snap against them? So I wonder now if Michigan suddenly looks, particularly with Gaddis getting the Broyles Award today, so that kind of gives him a stamp of approval. I wonder if coaches are going to come to Michigan now for the spring to get some tips on offensive innovation. And would you have not been a joke on the Paul Feinbaum show for suggesting that even 6 weeks ago, right? But here we are along the lines of what you're talking about with that. And I agree. Here's what it was for me. The win at Penn State and the way that they did it. That even though I agree with you about the win at Wisconsin, that just showed me that, okay, our program's not a dumpster fire, but we've even won big games in September before. I wanted to see what happened on the road in November. That's what I needed to see, especially after losing the game against Sparty the way that we did. And I was as demoralized as I've ever been, because that looked like a nut punch. That looked like, just as I was beginning to buy in, nope, here we go again, right? When we won at Penn State, but the way that we did it, in that it wasn't fluky. They weren't -3 in turnovers or something. We had to make a throw. We had to make a catch. We had to make a play. I mean, think about it, Mark. You're a college football historian every bit as much, if not more than I am. When was Michigan's last Henny to Braylon in triple overtime? Henny to Mario Manningham on the last play to beat undefeated Penn State? I mean, when was the last time that Michigan had the guy that made the play? That is Charles Woodson going to be too tired to strike the pose on a punt return? You know what I'm saying? Michigan has not had that in a marquee game in many, many years. All right. And even Denard Robinson, who basically kept the program together with bail wire, but he was so outmanned in a lot of these marquee games, he didn't get the chance to make plays like that. So in these marquee games, when was the last time that the guy wearing the winged helmet made the play, right? It doesn't happen often. The only time I can think of in the Harbaugh era was, Jordan Lewis making that pick against Wisconsin, Donovan Peoples-Jones making that catch against Michigan State, but that's twice in 7 years. And I think that's what was different now we're the ones making that play. We're the ones we got the stop on 4th and 2. We hadn't done that yet. And I think that's when I realized, okay, now it's not just, okay, the culture's turned around and that's good. We're not a dumpster fire. We're a solid program again. But if we're now going to be the guys that make the highlight plays and the headline plays when it matters the most, that is something we've not seen a lot from Michigan football in many years, and not a lot even in the Harbaugh years when he was winning a lot of games, Mark.
Yeah, the Michigan State game, that proved to me, especially with the way it transpired and really believing that Michigan was the better team when the two teams walked off the field, that was at the moment that I thought, okay, this is legitimately a good team, but maybe they're still snake bitten. Maybe the result is not going to follow. Maybe they're going to continue to find a way to lose against Sparty, and then they're going to lose to Ohio State in a month from now. But I know that they're a good team. I know that they're a legit top 8 or 10 team in the country. So yeah, it really took until pushing around the Buckeyes for 3 hours, where I had to be completely convinced of championship stock, and obviously we had to see it play out against that team. I was pretty convinced that it was the second best team in the conference going into that game, but we know what that gap has been for the last 10 or 15 years, most of the last 10 or 15 years. So we had to see it. And in the fashion in which it was brutally emphasized emphatically against that team was the way Jim Harbaugh wanted to do it. It was apropos.